Well, hello YouTube, vintage stereo collectors and restorers. This is another one of these, I don't know if it's the right word, conundrum? Maybe not conundrum, maybe irony? I look at this and I think, yeah, this is, realistic. This isn't vintage. Oh, but it is vintage. It just doesn't seem that old to me when these were a big deal. So this is a realistic stereo mixer. It's a model 32-1200C, so it's the later one. The earlier one, the 32-1200A, some of them were made in Japan, some were made in Korea. To be honest, even with the Chinese built ones like this, I see very little difference in them. They were all well built. And I think what it comes down to at this point, so this is a product from the 80s into the early 90s. I think what it comes down to now is what kind of condition is it in now? I picked this one up on a thrift store run weeks ago, and I just didn't get a chance to test it or anything. I've mentioned it in the video, went out for coffee and went out to the thrift store. And I saw this, they were asking $30 for it, and I took a look at it. It was in the case, and I'm just like, wow, there isn't a scratch on it. This couldn't have been used the way I used them back then. These were really a neat device. First of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it can do. You have pots for 3 mics, sliders, and pots that you can put into the right channel or into the left channel. It has the 1/4-inch mic inputs, 3 of them. Everything else is RCA. Okay, and I'm thinking, well, that's not a piece of pro equipment. This wasn't really pros, semi-pros were using these. Anybody who wanted to record their guitar, or especially in the 80s, my brother was huge into keyboards and synthesizers. And something like this allowed you to bring devices together, and we were using a Fostex cassette recorder to master things. So you can imagine, takes you back a few years. These were great for doing a little bit of mixing and blending and having a stereo output that could be recorded onto a cassette or into a reel-to-reel. It had a headphone jack, so master volume and mono or stereo. The phonotape aux, this is what's neat. You can run 2 magnetic cartridge turntables into here. It has a phono preamp and it's a very decent preamp. So either of these this is based stereo channel. You can do it either phono tape is line level, auxiliary is line level. It also has provision for ceramic phono, if you can believe it. It has a 1-2 fader between these. So what you can basically do, I used to love doing this. You got a turntable coming into here, and of course it was an SL1200, right? And the song is finishing, you start the next table up and bring the fade over. And it just sounds amazing. How do I know? I worked for a DJ back in the 80s, mid-80s. Not for very long, because to be honest, I was working so much at other jobs and in college that I literally, when it came to spending a Friday evening at a dance somewhere DJing, I was beat because I had been going to college during the day, working in the evenings. But it was kind of neat. The DJ that I worked for, we had several of these. And it was the ideal DJ thing. You could have 2 tables on one, and most wedding setups or dance setups, it was 2 tables. And so there'd be a table here and a table on left and right. They're SL1200 Mark IIs. Usually an Ortophon cartridge. And then usually we had a cassette deck here. If people would bring in a cassette and say, I got it ready, queued up on a song. Can you play this song? We used to do that, run that into another channel, and then have 1 mic here and just say, for all you disco fans, it was an awesome unit for that. And we usually ran it into, oh, I remember, it was a Rotel amp, rack mount, and it was, we used to put it under this, and then a couple Serwin Vegas, and the records, of course. And I remember I was hired through a friend who had the job as a part-time job, and so the DJ would say, okay, we're setting up at whatever, like 4 in the afternoon. I'd be like, well, I work till 6. Well, come when you can. And he'd leave all the albums, the big Serwin Vegas, everything in the back of his van. I had to lug that in. Some of the stuff, once in a while, I'd be sent out to get stuff. It'd be like, we'd have a problem. I remember we had several amps that went bad. And we had a problem with an amp, and he sent me to pick another one up, in my car. And it was so much lifting, but it was kind of fun. And you could really, I know in this digital age, people that are younger than me are laughing at this, but you could really have a nice sound, nice mixing, nice cueing. It really worked well. What am I going to do with it now? Well, I think I'm going to use this on my bench. And the neat thing about this one is, I'm running a signal from a tuner into it right now. I'm testing all these pots. They're not even crackly. How is that possible? It was kept in a good place. The only thing that has maybe a little bit of noise is this jack. I'm going to use this to test turntables, run a turntable into it, that kind of stuff, like just around the bench here for a while, and see how it goes. As far as operation goes, the only thing I can see between different versions, regardless of where they're made, are these sides. The last one I had wood sides, and somebody had sent me a message and said they never made them with wood sides. Well, it was a 32 1200A, and it had like fake wood sides, is all I can say. Maybe it was a Canadian one. Just a little addendum to what we were talking about. Just want to show you how to do the controls on this. So, there's products like Fader Lube, and I find in these, if you use Fader Lube, the controls become way too stiff. I find just a little shot of neutral between that felt, like hardly any, and it will end any noise you have and still have a nice feel. Just be careful if you're using Fade Lube on these smaller sliding controls. So as far as taking it apart, okay. Wow, you should see it outside. This is the 3rd day of blowing snow. What a mess it was, the driveway. Oh boy. It had drifted in, the plow had blown it in. It was just like unbelievable. But I got it done in about an hour. I'll put it this way, anybody that's over the age of 55 and doesn't have a blower, you're asking for it, man. Anyway, here's what we got inside of it. There is no need to go any further than here. So what you've got on this side are the potentiometers. Everything else you can get from the top side. It has Jamcon capacitors in it. So like for instance this one here, give it a little, right in the eye. No. Yeah, this one was kind of, the reason I want to get into this one, the headphone one was really stiff for some reason. I'm just going to let it soak down. Then we've got these here, and these actually, they're not bad pots for the time. They have a center to tent. And I believe they have, there's a hole we can get into. I haven't had one of these apart for a while. blowing outside. It looks like we're in the subarctic here. Oh, that's bad. Those are Lucian. They weren't noisy, but tight. Maybe it's a little bit more. See, there's like a notch in the side there. Yeah. I'm just going to flip it over so it runs out that way. Yeah, so... Oh, that's more like it. Nice. Nice. That feels like new. This thing, when they were used hard, you could tell. Because the controls were really stereo duty. They weren't meant for a dance club, you know. Doesn't matter where you spray them right there. These here you gotta be a little more careful with, but yeah. That's better. There was nothing in there. Well, whatever grease was left is long gone. Now, if you very carefully go into here, give those a shot. This Q control right here, because I know I'm making a little bit of a mess, but you have to get access from the other side. I'm going to show you why I'm doing it that way. There's a board in the way. To get that board out, you got to take the face off. And those meters, any that I've taken the face off, are glued in. Can be a real pain. This way, we'll just let it sit and run. That's about all there is to it. I'm just going to flip it over, try it out and see how it works. Yeah, it's going to dribble out a little bit. Be careful of this lettering on here. It can, if you're using alcohol-based stuff, it can wipe the white lettering off. So be pretty gentle. Look at the condition of that face, though. It's an amazing shape. Let's just plug it back in. Run into the... Go with the auxiliary. These jacks don't even have scratches on them from being pulled in and out. That's amazing. Okay. Which channel are we in? Yeah, those work just so nicely now. Yeah, that's just what it would have been like when it was new. This was worth 30 bucks. I say it's worth more than 50. You could still, I mean, do some home recording with it. There's no reason you couldn't take those auxiliaries from the RCA, the signal out from the master volume and into a sound card. You could do that too. Because, I mean, at some point the signal's analog, right? Wow. Anyway, thanks for watching and listening.